And as controversies continue to trail Nigeria's just concluded 2023 presidential and National Assembly polls, which was held last weekend, stakeholders in Akwa Ibom politics have voiced out their anger on INEC regarding the manner the election was conducted. They advised INEC to redeem its image by conducting a free and fair election come March the 11th.
In the past election, we did not adhere to time in all the polling units. That alone will also help the turnout. Because when you start the process late, it means that you are shortchanging the people by way of time. Okay, so when they come out on time, more voters will come and cast their votes.
The INEC worked on the psyche of Nigerians who now decided that if we're going to have a free and fair election, we'll come out en masse and vote and decide who rules. But I think for the first time, Nigerians wanted to take back their country. When I mean take back my country, for me, it wasn't about who was going to be the president, but it was about the process that would throw up a president, no matter who he would be, who would now be accountable to the people, who would now be responsible to the people who voted for him to be a president or a governor, that he was a product of the people. He would now be accountable to the people. So that was my own idea of taking back our country. But did we take back our country? No.
I feel really bad because there was this very serious level of interest generated because we expected would have free, fair and credible elections. And the processes actually inspired a lot of hope, confidence, particularly one, direct transmission of results from the polling booth to the clouds and then to INEC and then the IREF, where we could all see the results that were coming out. Some of us that are contesting were really hinging our hopes on that. I want to believe that INEC has learned from the reaction of the whole nation to what happened last Saturday. So I want to tell Nigerians, don't lose hope, give it one more push. And I want to tell INEC, you better just do it. Don't take Nigerians for granted. Give us free, fair, credible elections on Saturday. Whoever wins, we congratulate them if need be. And those who lose, they go home.
Now joining us to discuss these issues from our Lagos studio is Adebanjo, who is a lawyer, and with us in the studio is a RISE analyst, Professor Adeniyi.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Well,
they want to take back the country. INEC has made a show in last Saturday's election. Prof, let's start with you. Finally, looks like INEC is owning up. How would you describe that show last Saturday, and what could have been made better?
Well, I think it's the issues are already weather beaten, and INEC supposedly has identified their lapses. They have acknowledged it at least. You know, of course, they haven't been specific. They keep talking about lapses, and the major lapse was what was pointed out by the last commentator. You know, that they failed to upload results instantaneously to the INEC server, such that it could be live, and of course, transparency, credibility, you know, the fairness and the freeness of the election will be enhanced. And we exist in a system where there is lots of problem with trust, lot of problem. There's a huge trust deficit. We identify it, and of course, it's even much more so with an electioneering process. And the failure in that regard, you know, the fact that that piece in the jigsaw was missing has become the bane of the election now. It's the main reason why controversies are flying around, even though we know that every election will naturally come with levels of controversy. But this one seemed deep-seated because a promise that INEC made around improving technology, you know, improving on the use of technology through IREF, you know, they failed in that regard, you know. But what we need to do now is for them to make substantial amendments, you know, such that in next Saturday's governorship election, House of Assembly election, we'll have an improved use of these same technology. I mean, that will, in a way, mitigate disappointment that the populace is facing, you know, and we know what election means in the life of a nation that is still trying a democracy. The ball is back in their court, and the onus is on them as well, you know, to improve, you know, so that they could probably regain the confidence of the people, if not all the way, but at least to some extent.
Right. Well, you're talking about INEC telling us they will improve. Segun, let me come to you now in our Lagos studio. While we look forward to the governorship elections, let's circle back a little bit because some observers are citing Section 65, subsection 1C of the Electoral Act, where, of course, it talks about the INEC chairman, his decision being final, really. And some are wondering, this flaws that INEC is finally admitting to Nigerians today, couldn't he have at least admitted it or even tried to address it before, you know, someone was declared the winner, especially for the presidential election? Do you think it would have made any difference from what we're seeing, especially from the opposition political parties?
Well, I think the important thing is what is INEC doing to restore the confidence of Nigerians about the elections coming up on Saturday. And in today's paper, the Labour Party's gubernatorial candidate for Lagos, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vival, had called on President Buhari and the INEC commissioner to replace the INEC, and called on the INEC chairman to replace the INEC commissioner in Lagos State. Now, if people don't have confidence in the process, I think the fundamental thing that people should expect is that action speaks louder than words. So what, at a minimum, you'd expect INEC to do is to replace swap out all INEC commissioners and returning officers. It's almost like, for instance, if they haven't done a good job and people think they've been compromised, at a very minimum, swap them out. Their functions are fungible. You don't lose anything. They do the same thing in Rivers State as they would do in Lagos. But let the people in Lagos feel, okay, the umpire from the last election, who they felt was compromised, has been replaced and taken somewhere else. And that would be a huge step that the chairman can do to help Nigerians feel more confident in the process. And I would also go further to ask that the INEC affirmed to Nigerians that the results will be directly loaded this time to the beavers, because no one understands why that is a challenge. The law requires it. It's not a difficult process to just take a picture of a result where it's counted in front of everybody and upload it and send it up, let everybody see. What's the challenge there other than your simple refusal to do that? And yet you expect people to have confidence in the outcome, regardless of whatever you assure them. It's not about it's like sometimes, there's a phrase that goes in the law that it's not about justice just being done, justice must be seen to be done. Exactly.
Well, Segun,
exactly.
I'm so sorry, but I have to butt in here. But it seemed like you're deviating from the question you were asked. I asked you a direct question. The fact that, Section 65, subsection 1C of the Electoral Act talks about the finality of the decision of the INEC chairman. One is wondering, if this flaws, as he has highlighted, because some would say if you go back to the past and admit your errors, probably you can do better in the future. If this flaws that the Independent National Electoral Commission is finally, owning up to now, do you think he would have actually made a difference if he admitted these flaws before declaring a winner, especially for the presidential election? That was your question. We'll come back to all of the nitty-gritty and look forward to the governorship election, but that was your question, Segun.
Well, I understand that. Honestly, I didn't understand the purpose of the question. If they admitted the flaws beforehand and then declared the president, who the candidate they thought won, I'm not sure it would make any difference. The point is, whoever they declared, their mandate was in question through their own flawed process. So they've done a disservice even to the winners or supposed winner and those who feel aggrieved, because he can't sit comfortably when everyone looks at him as having had holding a stolen mandate. That's part of the concern. So I'm saying it's not what INEC says. At the bottom line, no Nigerian cares what INEC says. It's what INEC does. And that's why we're saying it's the actions they need to do now to restore confidence to Nigerians that are important. Swapping out the referees, the umpires, and confirming that they would immediately upload the results onto the Beavers system.
Okay, Prof. Now, we thought Segun was going to come in and tell us how to restore the electorate's confidence in INEC. So then, how can we ensure that what has happened with the last election does not negatively impact on the confidence of voters on Saturday?
Yeah, but first I thought he made some slight reference to it when he was talking about the need to change some personnel. You know, of course, that confidence in some personnel, you know, have been eroded for some reasons. That was somewhat contributory, really. You know, but essentially, it's a lot more has to be done on the part of INEC. You know, and communication is key in this regard. You know, we've made a point before that in the pre-election stage, INEC was almost excellent with communication, but in the process of in the thick of the election itself, they dropped the ball. They communicated less. They didn't provide information when they were supposed to do it, and of course there was this gap, creating misunderstanding, causing increased suspicion, which was why, you know, when it boiled over, we saw some reaction on the part of the opposition. Now we're in the post-election stage, you know, and of course in the post-presidential election stage, we need more communication. You know, yes, they had a review meeting today, and the chairman spoke to the populists, but we need more of this engagement, even on an everyday basis, so that we can again be reassured that their legs are still on the throttle and they can deliver, as the case could be. You know, it's very important for to galvanize support. But I do not see you know, voter apathy declining, you know, or increasing in the governorship election, because that level of election is closer to the people, and naturally you expect people to be much more involved, to be much more participatory. So, but again, we shouldn't take this for granted, and that's why it's important to build more confidence through information, appropriate dissemination of information, appropriate messaging, and timely provision of issues. I mean, timely provision of information, once again, on things that matter to the populace, so that they can be much more assured against the background of the passion and enthusiasm that they have shown, you know, in the presidential election.
Okay, Prof, I followed the INEC chairman around Abuja metropolis a few days before the election, and he tested the BVAS machines. He went around and he gave us confidence that everything was in order. What went wrong? At what point did they realize that things were not going to go the way they planned?
Well, very unfortunate. I think INEC will have to be brought into the dock to provide definite response to that. You know, but we can only fathom, and that's why suspicion is high that something was fishy. But again, the onus is back to them. The onus is on them to prove to us that nothing mischievous actually led to it. Yes, they've told us that it wasn't an act of sabotage, it was just a glitch. And of course, technology, it's something that is supposed to minimize human interaction with processes. And we know something, of course, that also requires human interaction for it to function. But against that background as well, we know that sometimes problems can occur, you know, but this one, how do we prove that the problem didn't occur? Because somebody else has had a different plan. That has been the bane, you know, the major downside of the election, irrespective of the pleasant surprises that we have seen across board. So a lot more has to be done at the level of information, confidence building, so that they can regain our trust. And I think this is not beyond them to do.
Regaining trust, that's what Prof is talking about. Let's go back now to Lagos and speak to Shego. Well, Shego, you touched on my next question to you. Of course, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vival, the Labour Party governorship candidate, is calling for a change of the rec in Lagos State, and one wonders if there's time enough for that to happen. The elections are barely a week away. Have that in mind while you also try to answer this question with regards to some of the flaws that INEC have actually highlighted, talking about the low uploading of results on BVAS, and especially logistics. Again, they're admitting they had issues with logistics. So some of these challenges that they have highlighted, do you think INEC, you know, would be able to pull it off in the next 1 week so that we avoid a situation like what we did see in the presidential and National Assembly elections? Are you confident that they will be able to do that?
No, we're not. And we can't be, because you haven't seen the action that suggests they would be. I mean, if someone has, it honestly looks like deliberate sabotage. I mean, they've had years to prepare for this. So, and they now don't do two fundamental things. I mean, actually even just one. The law says load the results, forget whether they were in polls. Those logistics, that's obviously their incompetence. But even the people who voted, what stops you from simply loading the result, taking a picture of it and loading it up to the system? That's what Nigerians put faith in, would be the game changer in these elections and elections in Nigeria going forward. I think that's what the press needs to put INEC on the spot to answer, not this distraction of INEC said we'll do better. It doesn't matter. The action is answer why you can't simply take a picture and upload the result where everybody can see.
And there was another leg to that question with regards to the call by Gbadebo Roadsvival that the wreck in Lagos should be replaced. And one wonders, time enough? We have the elections, which are barely a week away. Do you think, that can even happen? Is this something INEC should consider?
Well, look at the... Absolutely, because if you look at the role of the INEC commissioner and that of the returning officer, it's very fungible. They all have the same training. It's just an oversight role and a declaration role. There is nothing they are doing that they're going to do that in Rivers State. For instance, the commissioner in Lagos would do the exact same thing he's doing in Lagos. He would do it if he's moved to Rivers or Kano. So there's nothing special about that. It's just the transportation cost to his new location. And he assumes that, and that changes the game because people can now have confidence they have a fair umpire. Now, in the case of Lagos, it's particularly egregious because you have someone who's known to be an APC member or a former APC member and whose conduct in the last election confirms to everybody that his sympathies still lie with the APC. That's why we have asked for his removal in today's Guardian newspaper. We've asked President Buhari to act, even if it's just as a gesture. When you have two contestants to two contests in a contest, you don't have, for instance, you have Ghana and Nigeria playing. You don't bring an umpire from Nigeria or Ghana to referee the case. You send the Nigerian umpire to referee Egypt and Morocco and bring someone from Ivory Coast or Egypt to referee. Now, that's all we're asking. The referees do the same job. It's very similar. It's analogous with this case. The umpire is just an oversight of the process and declares that it conforms to the rules. Same with the returning officer. It's not anything special that is going to disrupt the election in any way.
Prof, in the event that, because prevention, they say, is better than cure, in the event that last Saturday's situation repeats or is about to repeat itself during the governorship elections, what would you advise that the electorate do?
We just hope that it will repeat itself, and INEC ordinarily we expect is a very responsible organization, with the caliber of men occupying positions, in that agency. So we expect that they have heard the cries of Nigerians. They've been aware of all the controversies. They've been, of course, some of them, I believe that they might also have found some of them very, very embarrassing. And I want to believe that all hands will be on deck so that they can improve on their performance, in the governorship election. So we just keep hope alive that it will not repeat itself. And what are we going to do if it does repeat itself? I don't think we can necessarily take laws into our hands. Just like the presidential contestants, have said that they're going to court, that they're going to challenge it, painful as it is, irritating as it is, because they expect a better quality election, and they didn't get it. But of course, they have resigned to the process by saying that they are going to the court, and I think they have actually gone to court in some cases. So it's a natural process route to take. If in the next election we find that kind of lapse again, what else do we do other than keep a record of imperfections and proceed to the next level of redress, which is the judiciary. That's all we can expect, but we just hope that it's not going to happen again. They've assured us today that they have done a review, and of course, those who failed to perform their duties as they were supposed to do it, are going to be sanctioned. So we just keep hope alive and trust that we're going to have an improved election.
Keep hope alive. Advice that, of course, Prof is giving now. But Shagun, let's come to you as we get ready to wrap up this conversation. So he's advised INEC. Let's talk about the voters themselves, really. What advice would you say the electorate should be getting at this moment? Because some would say maybe, you know, that trust that was probably broken by INEC during the February 25th elections might affect voter turnout in the governorship election. So how would you be advising the electorate right now so that way they ensure that they're not disenfranchised by coming out to perform their civic duty?
Well, that would be the worst thing they could do if they actually let the actions of INEC allow them to even compound the problem. For instance, they have a big problem if they feel their candidate on the national level hasn't been elected. The only way you can mitigate that loss is secure the actual level of government that is closest to you. And that is in the gubernatorial and House of Assembly elections. So that is even more important because it's from there when you ensure that you have a governor who would then advocate for a process that ensure your votes count. Because this is very serious. And I think we're taking this lightly, talking about what the guys in INEC honestly should be thrown in jail. They have corrupted a process, or at least let people lose confidence from a process that is so significant to keeping us together and peaceful. You have a generation of young voters coming to the poll, and you've now given them question to doubt that they can't effect peaceful change by a process they can have faith in. And I think the press is letting INEC off too easy and not understanding this is very dangerous to the country. Ask them the simple question and put their feet to the fire. Answer that one question. Why can't you upload the result directly to Beavers in front of everybody? What is that such a problem? The law requires it. Why can't you just, at your discretion, and say go to court? Honestly, that's just not acceptable. I just don't understand how they're getting away with that. And no one's calling.
Okay, Prof. Now, it takes two to tango, they say. We've spoken about INEC. We've given a word to the electorate. What about the security agents themselves? They seem to have looked on while some of these electoral irregularities were going on. What should they have done, and what should be their duty? What should they be doing on Saturday?
Well, quite a number of things, you know, consistent with the understanding of election as a multi-stakeholder affair involving INEC itself, security agencies, the civil society, the media, etc., etc. And we know what the role of the security is. We know that voters can sometimes be very desperate. Even politicians can be much more desperate. And in that circumstance, they may want to circumvent processes. And that's where security agencies, you know, will be called upon. Well, in the specific case of the election, we just expect that they'll be able to protect the polling booths, you know, protect the officials, you know, prevent thugs, you know, from approaching the centers, maybe cordon off the places. But again, do not forget that oftentimes we hear complaints about not having enough men, you know, to play these roles, you know, much unlike it could be if it were an off-cycle election where the concentration would just be around a state, yes. But we also have to trust again, you know, that they will up their ante and watch areas that they didn't perform well in the last one and improve on it. You know, we have had assurances from from the lead security agency, which is the police, and we'll take their word for it. And if they fail, of course, we'll call them out once again. But hopefully, all hands should be on deck to make sure that the next election is better than the one we just had.
Absolutely, a good place to drop the anchor tonight. Professor Adeniyi, Arise News analyst, as well as Shagun Adebanjo in our Lagos studios. Gentlemen, for helping us unpack tonight, we say thank you.